We got a good protocol. Two things I would say too that would possibly help you there is Osterin and ACP 105, both really nice for healing, and also you can continue to, help kind of build some extra muscle or lean muscle in the process. So I wanted to go there with you now because I'm a SARMs guy. I have been that was how I started talking about it before anybody, and so I've watched it evolve. I've watched it change. I've watched it go from when I started. The only thing you could get was 2866 S4, and then a few websites had MK677 for like $300 a bottle.
That's true.
Nobody used it. There was very few people, barely anybody sold it. But you got to remember, there was like 10 websites that even had the shit.
Yeah.
So research chemicals in general were mostly PCT products, right?
Oh, yeah, I remember. They used to come with a little droplet. You order, tastes like crap, and, half the time the bottle comes broken. You're shooting an email back on the forum to the guy. He emails you back. Okay, I'll try. Yeah, I remember those days.
So I've seen it from really the birth of it, really. So I guess where I'm going with that is from where it came from. And I remember when GW first came out, and then it was LGD, and then it started getting into RAD, YK11, and now they're basically S23 is basically stronger than many oral steroids. Right.
Have you ever seen the anabolic family tree that's very popular? You have your test derivatives, DHT derivatives, 19 NORs.
Yeah.
It's actually extended now. If you look up an update, they have the SARM selection, the peptides, and it extended into this big thing. So it's acknowledged. And most people who say, oh, it don't work, never tried it. Like they've never tried it, or they'll read the literature of science. That's why with my videos, I pull up the science, I pull up the literature, and whatever compound's been studied, I show it. But I think they're going to eventually, I give it like a good 5 years, 10 years, it's going to get the axe because same thing with Superdrol. I used to be able to walk into a damn GNC and buy Superdrol. You can't buy Superdrol no more, like that.
That's right. Yeah, I walked right in and fucking bought it.
Yeah. Or, the old Jack 3D, where it has DMAA in it, giving people heart attacks with 3 scoops. You used to be able to buy it. Those are banned compounds now. Guess what? Anything that's going to provide results, people are going to debate at first, and then eventually it gets banned. So,
absolutely. Now,
RAD is my favorite. So I did a trend test masteron cycle. Mm-hmm. I gained a good amount of weight muscle size. I've seen it surplus off it. A lot of people say you can't bulk on trend, or you trend strictly for cutting or recomp. You can virtually bulk or cut on any compound depending on your caloric intake. But some are going to favor other goals versus others. But I did that. I gained a good amount of weight. Then I was like, screw it. This was a few years back. I was like, let me try this RAD 140. I grabbed RAD 140. I grabbed MK677. Someone sent it to me. I ran both of them. Coming off that cycle, I gained an additional 17 pounds. And people are going to be like, oh, well, that's MK677 water weight. No, I was freaking shredded to the bone. Obviously, you're going to get a little nitrogen retention, but everything's dictated by your diet. So, yeah.
And so that's where I was going with this. So if you made a statement, I'd say 4 or 5 years ago, and compared SARMs and steroids, it was like, oh, you're selling them, or you're doing this because that's such bullshit, da-da-da-da-da. But now, if you take, and I don't know which ones you ran, and I want to get into that. If you take S23, if you take LGD 3303, for example, I'd say stand up and tell anybody to their fucking face that wants to debate me that those two are going to get bigger gains than you're going to get with like a Winstrol, an Anavar, or even a T-ball.
Yes.
All good.
I've been telling people that nonstop. And then, people start, doing their little experiments on the lab rats, and they're coming back. They're like, yo, the lab rat, gained a good 12 pounds. Yeah. And I've had people in the comment section say, this blows Anavar test out the water. This blows freaking test and Mastron, test and Primobolan. But then again, there comes the gains. Now, as people start acknowledging it more and more, it's going to catch on, and then that's where
it's the problem. My argument is threefold. Okay, the first is with an oral steroid, obviously the toxicity, and there's some toxicity present with SARMs, but nowhere near to the extent that you're getting with an oral, and over time, fucking wacky, right? Second is the length of time you can run. You can't run oral steroids too. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but you do it, and you're just going to thrash yourself. And 3 is keepability because your recovery is far easier.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to keep far more on the SARMs. You're going to be able to run them longer, and you're going to do less damage to yourself.
Of course. But keep in mind, too, so if you're running an anabolic, like let's say, whatever one, it also attaches to the scalp and the prostate, inflates the prostate. Rad 140 has been proven to shrink back the prostate back to normal size. Right. So when people ask me, why do you run Rad, typically a month after your last cycle? Well, one, I'm going to continue my gains. I'm not going to lose any gains. And then on top of that, I'm shrinking my prostate back down because it's a selective androgen receptor modulator. It's going to help with the prostate health, and I'm going to feel better and still look good. You know? And yes, you can run, Rad with tests, but they're going to compete. And guess what? Rad wins every single time. So you got to keep the test at like a TRT level, just as a tough base. But even so, even for the ones who aren't prescribed TRT like me, don't even worry about Rad shining down. Worry about running a clomiphene or something afterwards, and that's really it. HMG, and you're good to go.
Absolutely. And that's a great call right there. And that's just it. And people, if you take because I just did this TRT dose, because I stopped cycling at this point, right? So I'm on TRT, and I did TRT. I did S23, AC262, and S4. And S4 is another one for the prostate, by the way, that you mentioned with RAD. And then I did SR 9009 because I'm a cardio guy, right?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, what a cycle that just was. I put on, and I eat at a major deficit, mind you. Like, I do over 2 hours of cardio a day. I still lift quite heavy and everything, but I eat at a large deficit. I still gained almost 10 pounds. And I'm talking eating at a large deficit, right? And how the hardening alone, the muscle hardening, my wife was saying, how in the fuck, like, what the hell is going on here right now?
Yeah.
It was that's how strong.
Yeah. Leading into my show, these aren't really SARMs. They're considered peptides. I was running 5-amino-1-MQ, tesofensine, T3s, that obviously a metabolism modulator. Right. Then we had MK677. And my maintenance is about 4,000 calories, and I was eating at, I think, about 3,500 calories, and I was losing about a pound a day. Wow. That's how quick. And I could, anytime I went under 2,000 calories, I'll turn into a twig the next day. It's just sucking everything dry. That's how strong of a fat burning stack that was. Now, I compared that, because I had no high blood pressure. I didn't have jitters. I felt energized. The only thing that sucked was my deficit, and I slowly increased my calories leading to the show before I ended up with the stomach bug. Thanks to my kids, those bring home sicknesses from daycare. But I compared that to when I ran clenbuterol with T3, and it overexceeded the clenbuterol with T3, which clenbuterol could bring you up to about 10 to 15% of your BMR, and then T3 roughly about the same. It overexceeded that by at least 5-fold. And at the same time, I didn't have all the side effects that are associated with the clenbuterol, the jitters, shakes, and everything of that nature.
Right. So, what do you think? So, because tesofensine is strong and it's really good. Two things. How did your experience go with that? And do you feel like it really curbed your appetite a lot, or how did you respond to it?
I used tesofensine with MK677 because I use it as a balancing act. I use it as the seesaw because if I take MK677 and I've done it before, I could easily eat 10,000 calories without an issue. And I'm talking about not like junk food, like clean food. Like really clean food, 10,000 calories would be nothing for me. And then the tesofensine, if I take it alone, I could probably barely eat about 1,800 calories. So, yin and yang.
Did you have any kind of side effects with the teso at all, or any kind of?
My first 2 weeks on it, I noticed slight insomnia. But then I changed the protocol. I was doing 0.5 grams every single day. And then I switched it to a quarter every other day. And after doing that, I still got the appetite suppressing, a little bit of energy, a little fat oxidation. But I didn't get that over alertness before sleep. It was like you're tired but can't sleep.
Right. So, did you have caffeine intake at all with it at all, or?
I was drinking about 7 Red Bulls a day. I drank 7 Red Bulls a day for the last couple of years. And Yeah, and what's funny is after the show, after I ran that stack I just talked about a few previously, after I ran that stack into the show, I cut the Red Bull out a day before the show because the sodium. And after the show, I went to drink a Red Bull and I didn't like the taste, and I haven't drank a Red Bull since.
Wow.
A sugar-free Red Bull, yeah.
That's why
I literally have like 4 boxes sitting in my kitchen of sugar-free Red Bull untouched.
No shit.
Yeah, because I buy them by the box. Like Amazon literally was dropping them off every week to me.
Wow. Well, here's a question, because I want to go back to this, because this is what drew me to SARMs the very first time that drew them to me. So I had ran the super draw cycle, and I put on way too much size than I was comfortable with, right? And I wanted to start cutting it down. But obviously I couldn't. I was like, oh, I'm going to take Anavar and Provider. And then I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. It's like constant running of orals. So that's when I discovered SARMs, and I ran S4 and MK2866 because that's all you could run. And it shredded me like to no end. But my point with that is, ever since then, I adopted that policy, which you were talking about, which bridging with SARMs in between cycles. And I did it ever since. And so I wanted to just go back to that real quickly. How long have you been doing that? And how effective do you find that to be for what you're trying to do?
Wow. Well, I'd say roughly about 3 years. That's why I started advocating for SARMs. And the reason why I started SARMs was because I was that guy on social media. Oh, this don't work. 3 years ago, I was 31, I'm 34 now. I was still, hardcore. I was like, yeah, just run trend, this. One of my friends gave me rad. He's like, come off everything. He's like, try this rad 140. Mm-hmm. And literally, I felt like it wasn't like a build-up while running anabolics. It's like, I take rad, next day I'm freaking running around in the gym. And like, I filmed like some of the most insane workouts that got me popular on TikTok. Like, people see me super sad, throwing around weight. Like, I had 315, I benched for 30-something times, 225, 49 times. And people are like, what are you running? I was like, rad 140. They're like, BS. I was like, dude. They're like, no, you always talk about this. I was like, dude, I'm running rad 140. That's it. And then that's the slow build up. Then doing more research. I was like, oh, well, it does this one has healing properties. And then you start learning all of them. And then you start being able to leverage certain things. And I have seen the most growth I have in years by bridging or even coming off gear and just running SARMs and just staying on my TRT. And then my blood markers are healthy. And it just ended up being a good, systematic thing for me.
It's definitely going to be better for longevity. I'm curious, have you ran through them all, or are there ones you haven't used yet that you are kind of looking? Because I'm S23 and AC262 were new to me. Yeah. And you're my favorite now, but my next cycle now, I'm going to do 3303 and ACP 105 as soon as I get back from vacation. That's my next one with SR. I love SR now over GW. I've used GW too fucking long. So what ones have you maybe not used that you're looking forward to using?
So the ACP I haven't used, and SR 9009 because I used SR 9011.
Okay, all right. Used them both, so yeah. Either way,
the S4 AC262, S4 I have right here too, half a bottle. S4 AC262 are like some of my favorite. People ask me what I was on at the Olympia, leading into Olympia when I was filming with Tony and, Robert. We were filming. They're like, what are you running? Like all the other influencers. I was like, you guys are going to laugh. S4, tesofensine, 5-amino-1-MQ, MK677. And everyone kept saying bullshit. I was like, no, bro, wait to run a cycle. I was like, Tony said, not Tony, one of them said, come in lean, look good, shave. And I was like, good. I want to take pictures with people. So I read that, shredded out, good diet, kept the carbs fairly low for that one. And I looked insane. Like, if you looked at the videos, Tony looked at me. He's like, you look like you show prepped. I was like, yeah. I'm saying that I lift up, all my abs are popping, striated, obliques. Like, it looked nuts.
See, S4 is always like my old faithful. Like, I love S4. S4 is not as strong as like Masteron or Winstrol, but that's the kind of effect. And I get it like really hard. And they ran it with S23, and that's what gave me all of that muscle hardening. I love S4. I know it's not for everybody, but
I view it as a good moderate in between. So yes. Like let's say you're running rad with let's say AC262, you run that for 5 or 6 weeks. you come off, for 3 or 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Always say come off the same duration you've been on. So if you did 6 weeks, come off for 6 weeks. But then you want like a nice little push, but not to overdo it. That's when you miss something like S4, like a nice little kick, S4 with a little cardarine, low dose, and you're good to go.